Inside the castle, Well stood before the throne and concluded his subjugation report. The king, seated on the throne, addressed him with a smile. Well, once again, he has protected their nation from the magic beasts. Thanks to him, they can all welcome the new year in peace. The king then leaned back with a sigh, saying he has only got 1 year left until retirement. He's grateful as finally he'll be able to take a breather. He calls him hero of the Holy Sword as he thanks him. Magic beasts, monsters that have spread across the continent, violently mutated from unknown causes. When a beast transforms into a magic beast, its body enlarges and it becomes ferocious. Normal weapons can't kill them, and their skin becomes unnaturally tough. The people could do nothing but run and hide until the humans successfully struck them down using holy weapons, forged from rare ores. From that moment on, nations began to form around the wielders of these sacred arms. The kingdom of Exiled is protected by 2 such weapons, the Holy Sword, Elsie, and the Holy Lance, Exile. Later that evening, the king hosted a dinner banquet in Well's honor, telling him tonight's banquet is for him. He warmly asks him to drink to his heart's content. Well bowed gratefully while reflecting silently. 19 years ago, his ordinary life was turned upside down the moment he pulled out the Holy Sword, Elsie. Seated at the royal table with him are Lord Vat, King of Krenlard, Feliasil, Queen of the Crescid F Kingdom, Marisil, the first princess and a saintess, and Elisil, the second princess. Well thanks the king respectfully, addressing him as his majesty, but Lord Vat laughs and wave it off. He asks him not to call him that. He sees him as a younger brother, so just call him Big Brother. Feliasil chuckles while scolding him gently. She says he had too much to drink, Lord Vat. Poor Well is at a loss. Still, she also wants him to call her big sister too. Marisil chimes, telling Well he was amazing in yesterday's battle. Elisil eagerly added she wants to hear about it too. As Well ate, he thought to himself, life is unpredictable. Who would have thought he would be here celebrating the new year with royalty? They invite him every year. Despite everything, he still wasn't used to it. After all, he came from a commoner background. A single old man, aged 34. No girlfriend, no surviving family. It still feels like a dream, he thought. Just then, Lord Vat raised his glass, saying, by the way, there's good news. At today's hero selection ceremony, they finally found someone, a new Holy Lance hero to succeed him. Well asks, really, so someone finally managed to pull out the Holy Lance? Elisil says they were there, and it was incredible. She asks Marisil, who agrees, saying even the muscular knights of the order couldn't make it budge. That Holy Lance, Exile, who would have thought such a young boy could pull it out? Well tells them, a sacred weapon doesn't accept strength alone. It won't choose someone unless they're worthy. Elisil asks what he means, and Well explains by asking if she knows what mana is. All living things, humans, animals, fishes, even trees, contain a life force called mana. Only by channeling mana through a sacred weapon can it cut through magic beasts, but using it consumes a lot of mana. That's why in this kingdom they select candidates based on whether they can pull out a sacred weapon. Sadly, mana isn't visible to the eye. Marisil says she understands. The hero needs more than just strength, he needs mana's blessing. Well replies precisely. Their mother, the queen, tells them those who can wield mana are very rare. Lord Vat adds, which is why they must show their gratitude to heroes, saints, and mages alike. Now then, about his retirement rewards, his 2 precious daughters, which one would he like to marry? Hearing this, Well spits out his drink. He disagrees, telling Lord Vat he's not worthy of that. Lord Vat tells him he's not getting any younger. He needs a partner to keep up appearances, so don't be ridiculous. His predecessor, Marissa, was also a commoner, yet she married into royalty, his brother. Well responds, those two fell in love naturally. Lord Vat replies, citizens dream of marrying into royalty after becoming a hero. Well tries to speak when Lord Vat interrupts, asking if they're really doing this again. Just give him a proper answer already. Well thinks many dream of becoming heroes, lavish rewards, land and status, marriage to noble beauties in exchange for rescuing lives. For fighting magic beasts, they're promised everything imaginable but what he wants. Well then calls Lord Vat big brother, saying to him, both of them are like nieces. That's all. For retirement, just a modest pension will suffice, and if he can train the new hero into a worthy successor, he will be content. Hearing his answer, Lord Vat sighs deeply, saying he's always so serious. Well apologizes when Marisil offers him a drink. Lord Vat looks at him, thinking that's why he really wanted Well in his family. If he ever change his mind, just let him know. Afterward, in the royal castle guest room, Well jumps on his bed, saying he drank way too much. Just then a voice says, that's rare. She has never seen Well this drunk. He looks at his sword and calls Elsie. Elsie tells him Lord Vat gets way too pushy after drinking, but he means well, though. She's a spirit-like entity dwelling within the holy weapon. She was once human, apparently, but somehow ended up like this. It's a mess. She says rude, she still have a woman's heart. He tells her he can only hear her voice, so he's fine either way when she snaps, telling him to shut it. He agrees. He then giggles when she asks what. He says she has fought by his side for 19 years and he has never seen her face. She replies saying what a shame. She knows every little thought in that head of his. He groans, asking if she could stop reading his mind without asking first. Well then asks if she thinks the next hero can hear her. She tells him that so far no one but Well has ever heard her voice. At least he has a successor now, so they should set the bride talk aside, to which he agrees. She then says, between beast hunting and rookie training, this year is going to be packed. Says only 1 year left as he'll be counting on her. She tells him she'll be counting on him too. Afterward, he hears a scream as he wakes up instantly to find himself locked up. At the royal castle square on the pedestal of slumber, all the citizens are gathered as well as being taken to the slumber as a hostage. As he walks, citizens throw stones at him, shouting that he's been acting like a damn fool since the year began. The hero getting drunk and assaulting the saintess. That's low, one yells. They start calling him names when Well thinks what's going on. Assault, he attacked Marcial. He thinks he was asleep in his cell just a moment ago. He seriously has no clue what's happening. Just then he looks up and sees a man holding his sword. The man says that's right. He thinks he's innocent, so the mighty holy sword did something stupid. Elsie says this is a joke, a total farce. Well wonders who is he when Elsie answers, telling him that's the vice-captain of the knights, the one who always hated him. Well remembers him. As Well stands there, the man walks up to him grinning. He says now then, allow him to tell him his punishment. He tells Well he's exiled from the kingdom. Well gets shocked when Elsie exclaims what? Well protests, saying that's ridiculous. His Majesty would never allow this. Elsie urges to show them proof Well did that when the man laughs as he calls him a dumbass while showing him a letter. He says it's an imperial order from His Majesty himself. Well stares at the letter stunned. The man sneers, saying he knew it from the start. The truth finally comes out. Shameless fraud who clung to the hero title for far too long. He's a disgrace. In the end, he's just a commoner who happened to pull out the holy sword. How dare he lay a hand on the beautiful and noble Lady Marcial? He's the real beast here. Elsie calls him trash, asking if this is how they treat the hero who served the kingdom for 19 years. She turns to Well, asking why won't he say anything back. He has so many allies who would support him. Suddenly, the citizens shout at him, telling him to get out. The man then hands the holy sword back to Well, saying he knows what comes next. Well, while being broken, grabs the sword and places it back into the stone. As he does, Elsie quietly apologizes, saying she couldn't protect him. Well replies, what is she saying? Thanks to her, he became a hero. He the one who should apologize for being so pathetic. He thanks her for everything and then turns walking away, saying goodbye. Later, inside the carriage, the man pushes Well out and tells him to go wherever he likes while calling him a criminal. They ride off, leaving Well behind. Well looks at them, thinking his role as a hero is over now. He sits there alone, thinking that Elsie would have scolded him for catching a cold, saying, who will protect the country if the hero gets sick. He reflects, saying he doesn't have the holy sword anymore. He's not a hero anymore. He remembers the chance and everything that came with that title, wondering what now. Just then Elsie sighs, saying honestly he's hopeless without her. Well gets startled as he looks at the dagger. Elsie, he says. He picks up the dagger, asking why is she here, whereas the holy sword. She tells him it turns out she can possess this dagger too. She scowls, saying she was such an idiot, staying loyal to that country. After all his dedication, they threw him away. They're worse than the beasts, worse than ogres. He completely fell into their trap. She continues, asking if they even know how many years she spent training him. She was trying to work from the inside, and Well interrupts her as he apologizes. She waves him off, telling him boys shouldn't sweat the details. She then asks why didn't he fight back or escape back there. He had no reason to take it lying down. This mark of a criminal is just. He replies if he had done that, he would have tainted the image of the hero he always looked up to. She calls him a dummy as he starts crying. She asks what's with the tears when he says it's just that everything hit him all at once. She sighs, saying seriously, he's such an idiot. At night, Elsie and he wandered until morning. The next day, they found a small village that gave them food and water. 1 week since being exiled, a soldier apologizes to him, saying they don't have anything for sale. At another village, a guard accuses him of treason and demands he leave. After being turned down everywhere, Elsie gets angry, saying this is infuriating. Why is his wanted poster spreading so fast? Well says, thanks to that he's being denied entry everywhere. She replies so he can't live in any human kingdom now. Maybe, he says, but if they keep looking then someone, somewhere, might accept them. Elsie retorts, and just when would that be? She then says she has got an idea. What if they head to the demon territory? He blinks, asking demon territory. She explains to the west of Krenlard there are no human nations. Ledden says that's where demons and non-humans live. Well says no human nations, as that place must be seriously hellish to live in, and without the holy sword he. Just then Elsie cuts him off, telling him he can do it. She guarantee it. Feeling motivated, Well says if Elsie says so then he's in. She grins, telling him that's the spirit. He chuckles, saying it's not like they have got anywhere else to go. A few weeks later, deep in a forest, Well is crawling on the ground, calling out Elsie he's dying. He's seriously dying, this is it for him. Elsie says this much won't kill him. She has done a lot of research after all. Well weakly asks what is she saying and then faints. Later, someone pokes his face with a stick. He slowly opens his eyes, thinking who is that, did he passed out? A little girl is poking his head with a stick. He looks at her and tries to ask for water. The little girl smiles at him when Elsie says, well, he's awake. Well tries to speak but can't. Elsie says he can't even talk right now. Don't worry, she will speak for him. She looks at the little girl, telling him blue hair, crimson eyes, crimson translucent horns, almost like an angel. Well groans, asking her to stop reading his thoughts. He then thinks it's no good. He still can't speak properly and no one else can hear Elsie but him. He reaches out to the girl, trying to ask for help when she says okay. Just then, a woman appears calling out Delilah, asking what is she doing. Delilah turns and calls her mommy, telling her Mr. said he wants to eat Miss Wormy. Delilah's mother looks at Well in confusion, saying Mr. she asks. Elsie mutters, telling him second angel sighted. Afterwards, Well is lying on the woman's lap as she gives him water to drink. She then tells Delilah honestly it's water, not bugs. Delilah giggles when Elsie tells Well he's lucky they found him in time. She adds the horns, the strange hair and eye color, they're probably demons. The woman then asks Well if he can drink a little more. Well looks at her, wondering if he's dead and if this is heaven. Elsie urges him to answer her when Well gets startled and quickly pulls back, apologizing for the trouble. He thanks them and introduces himself. Elsie tells him to pull himself together when Well explains that he collapsed while searching for the demon territory and swears he's not dangerous. He wonders if they'll even believe him, wondering if his wanted poster reached this far already. Just then the woman smiles at him, telling him he's fine. Well looks at her in surprise as she continues, telling him this little one is shy with strangers, but she warmed up to him right away. Delilah is sitting peacefully on his lap as Well gently hugs her. Suddenly, he apologizes again when Elsie sighs, telling him he's way too relaxed. Delilah then tells her mother Mr. said he's hungry. The woman then tells Well their house is nearby. Would he like to rest there? Well asks really when she nods. She then picks up Delilah and says where are her manners? They humans call their kind Oni folks. Delilah introduces herself, and the lady introduces herself as Natalia. Bit later, Natalia thanks Well for waiting and tells him this is the Oni folk village, their people's home. She's carrying Well when he in embarrassment says this is weird. She responds telling him he just collapsed not too long ago. Well asks how can she even lift him when she tells him called Kairyoku, the mana technique passed down through the Oni bloodline. Elsie explains by focusing mana into specific parts of the body, they can boost physical abilities. Well tells her Oni folks are amazing. As they walk into the town, Natalia tells him they rarely get any visitors. They then enter a large house when Natalia gives him a clean set of clothes to wear. After changing into the Well comes outside. Delilah looks at him, saying he matches Teruru-chan. Natalia then opens the door and they all walk inside. Inside the room, a beautiful lady is sitting there. She greets Well, saying it's been years since they had a human visitor. She introduces herself as Eliza, the village chief and also Natalia's mother-in-law. Well looks at her in surprise, thinking she looks way too young for that. Eliza smiles and says people often mistake her for Natalia's older sister. Well then wonders, come to think of it, he hasn't seen any older folks around. Eliza then asks him so what happened. He collapsed out there, that's troubling. Well replies, telling her it's a long story. Suddenly they hear a loud roar that startles everyone. Well says that roar, don't tell him that's when Elsie tells him that's what he think. Just then a villager rushes into the room, telling the chief they have a problem. A magic beast has appeared. The men are holding it back with Kairyoku for now, but it's huge. They don't know how long they can last. He then starts crying as he delivers a message from his father. The chief looks surprised when the boy says they will try to hold it off, but this one might require Onidash to drive it away. He might not be able to get rid of it. If that happens, he said to leave the aftermath to her, that's all he said. Immediately, the village chief hurries outside, telling Natalia to take Delilah and their guest to the back. She orders everyone else to reinforce the barrier as they agree. Natalia then turns to Well, telling him they need to go now, but Well stops her. He tells her to wait, asking if Oni folk have a way to kill a magic beast. What is this Oni-dash thing? Natalia stays silent for a bit and then explains, even among demons, no one has ever truly slain a magic beast, but the Oni folk have one secret move that can be used only once in a lifetime. It's a hidden technique passed only to Oni men, Oni-dash. Break their horn with Kairyoku, pour all their mana into the shattered horn, and forge a crimson blade sharp enough to wound a magic beast, but the user's life force burns out in an instant. She then lowers her voice, telling him it's a heroic act passed from father to son, generation to generation. Elsie speaks up, telling Well he does realize this is a suicide mission. Hearing that, Well rushes outside, saying like hell he would let that happen. Natalia calls after him, but suddenly remembers her husband leaving in the same way. She falls to her knees, haunted by the memory. As Well runs, Elsie pleads, asking if he doesn't understand. He doesn't have the holy sword Elsring anymore. Well says he knows, and he also knows he needs a weapon forged with magic or no sword, no magic beast slaying. Sacred weapons change shape with mana thanks to the magic ore in their blades, but they still don't know how they're made. Well thinks without a sacred weapon, he's just a powerless old man. He remembers Delilah and Natalia and then grips his dagger tightly. He charges towards the beast and then blocks the beast's attack, saying he still has something to do. Large explosion occurs when the Oni men shout at him to get back. Well responds, it doesn't matter, he will deal with it. He then turns to Elsie, asking its neck is the weak spot, right? Elsie confirms, asking, but how is he going to take it down? That thing's fully grown. Well replies, he will stab it again and again until it stops moving. He draws his dagger when Elsie groans, saying he seriously don't get it. Well leaps at the beast when Natalia watches, asking him, don't. In that moment, she sees a vision of her husband being killed by the same kind of beast as she calls out to Well again. The beast attacks, biting Well's arm. Well grits his teeth and with the dagger begins stabbing the beast over and over. Finally, the magic beast falls dead as Well too collapses to the ground. He gasps, saying he's alive. While lying down, he realizes that magic beasts weren't supposed to be scratched without a sacred weapon, so how? Elsie says she told him 1,000 times. Does he even know how many years she spent training him? Well replies, saying it really feels like a dream when Elsie says his mana is just insane. That blade wasn't even made of magic ore, but he flooded that tiny dagger with so much mana and compressed it into the blade. It only lasted a second, but in that moment, it became a pseudo-sacred weapon. In short, he's more than strong enough. He killed a magic beast with his own strength. All the Oni men gather around him as they all start cheering for him. Suddenly within the crowd, Natalia calls out to him when Well looks at her and apologizes for all the trouble. Elsie warns him to grit his teeth. Well looks confused until Natalia slaps him hard across the face. She yells at him, saying who fights a magic beast alone with a dagger that tiny. What does he think his life is even worth? Everyone falls silent, startled by her outburst. Afterwards, she demands him to let her see that wound. Well tries to brush it off, saying it's just a scratch when she insists, telling him she'll heal it. He says don't worry, it won't take long when she grabs his hand and heals his wound instantly. Elsie gets shocked, saying that healed in an instant. Well thinks that's even faster than Lady Marcial's healing magic. He asks Natalia if that's also an Oni folk technique. He looks at Natalia and sees her crying as he gets surprised. He asks her to wait, why is she crying? While sobbing, she says she's just so glad that he's alive. Just as Well reaches out to comfort her, Delilah slaps him out of the blue, telling him he made Mama cry. Delilah then says he has to hug them when Well gets stunned. She insists on hugging them as he looks to Elsie for help. Elsie sighs, telling him he's hopeless. Natalia then smiles gently as she thanks Delilah for worrying about her. Delilah nods with a bright smile. She then turns to Well when Natalia says she apologizes if they caused him any offense. Well replies, not at all, he's the one who made her cry. Natalia then reaches out and holds his hand, saying she's truly thankful to him for saving Delilah and her mother-in-law. He protected the Oni folks too, so thanks a lot. Well gently squeezes her hand in return, saying he's just glad he was able to protect them. After he took down the magic beast that attacked the village, Well explained everything to Eliza and the others. After hearing his story, Eliza tells him they don't judge people by those brands here. More importantly, he should stand tall. To the Oni folk, he's the hero who saved them from the magic beast. With no place left in the human lands, Well began staying at the chief's home with Natalia and Delilah, taking up work hunting magic beasts around the world. Later during lunch, Well takes a bite and says this is delicious. Elsie tells Natalia she's amazing at cooking. Natalia beams with joy, saying she's glad it suits his taste. After the meal, Well leaves to go hunting. As he was preparing, an Oni man approaches him, saying he's at it again. He's Grain, the Oni folks' blacksmith. He calls out to Well, telling him he finally managed to forge something decent. Grain asks if he'd like to try it out. He handed Well a sword as Well's eyes widened. He looks at it, saying, holy sword, Elsring, when Grain chuckles, telling him it's a replica. Elsie moved from the dagger into the sword and exclaiming, that's awesome. She can even possess this one. Well smiles, saying this'll make hunting so much easier. Grain nods, telling him there are 2 legendary weapons from the human world. He couldn't resist forging one to see what they'd look like. Well thanks him and offers to pay, but Grain declines, saying if he hadn't shown up when he did, he would have used Oni Dash while walking off. Later, while fighting a beast, the sword breaks, but Grain has already made several more for him. That night inside a restaurant, the villagers are gathered to celebrate Well's success. Everyone cheers and raise their glasses in his honor. Elsie nudged him, asking him to look at that. He's being treated like family. Well asks quietly if this is really okay. They've been so kind to him, but all he has done is what he always does, hunt beasts. Elsie scowled, saying he really doesn't get it. Just then Darukan, the Oni folk butcher, walks in. He tells Well he has got to try their finest meat tonight. Well replies he kind of feels bad when Darukan blinks, asking bad why. He continues asking Well if he has any idea. He takes down the beasts and doesn't even claim the magic stones. Thanks to him, this village is thriving. Well, while looking shocked, asks magic stones. They usually only get those from big beasts. Exactly, Darukan says, telling him they're incredibly rare. Well asks what do they even use magic stones for. Darukan looks baffled, saying he doesn't know. Well shakes his head, telling him he only ever saw them being used in things like the Holy Sword and the Holy Lance. No one in Krenlard knew how to work with them. Darukan disagrees, telling him magic stones are worth as much as gold coins, some even more. Well thought for a moment when Elsie admits that she didn't know that either. Well mutters he guessed the knights handled all that stuff outside the beast hunts. Elsie frowns, saying so heroes were making the country rich without even knowing it. Darukan puts a hand on Well's shoulder, saying the way he sees it, he deserves far more than what he has ever gotten. Well shrugs, telling him not really. Darukan smiles, saying everyone appreciates him. Besides, he was a hero. Well nods quietly when Darukan adds if that's how the human world treated him, then maybe the human world was wrong. Elsie agreed, saying exactly, he gets it. Darukan laughs, saying now come on, enjoy himself. Try some of the best meat they have. Elsie sighs wistfully at times like these. She really misses having a real body. A few days later, inside his room, Natalia and Delilah walks in. Delilah tells him here's some tea when Well thanks Delilah. Natalia turns to her, saying, all right, it's bedtime, so let's go, but Delilah hugs Well tightly, telling her she's not sleepy. Natalia smiles awkwardly as she apologizes, saying she's gotten so attached to him. Afterwards, she asks Well, lately what has he been researching, staying up so late at night? Well tells her everyone in the village has been so good to him, so he just wants to repay the favor. Natalia asks if he hasn't done enough already when he says he just realized something. The Oni folk can control mana in much better ways than humans. If they can harness that properly, then maybe they can stop people from dying after using Oni Dash. Natalia gets surprised and asks why he's going so far for them. He tells her that they were the ones who helped him first. Natalia gets emotional and tells him she'll whip up a late-night snack, while Elsie comments, not bad. Afterwards, Natalia brings them food and they spend time together. One day, Elsie asks Well why doesn't he just marry Natalia. Hearing this, Well gets surprised when Elsie tells him she can hear his thoughts. Besides, Natalia doesn't seem to dislike the idea either. She's a wonderful woman. She makes those royal princesses from their kingdom look like amateurs. Well says he doesn't know. Sure, he managed as a hero, but when it comes to things like that, he's hopeless. That's why he got betrayed. At the end of the day, he's just some guy with a sword, he says that while feeling disappointed in himself. Just then, Elsie tells him he's doing just fine even without the sword, and she's with him because of who he is, not because he was a hero. Well apologizes, saying he's still not over it yet. He then asks why His Majesty gave that order. He told him he was family and that he could trust him. Elsie says about that actually, there's something she has been keeping from him. She explains that he was completely set up by the two princesses. She reminds him of the New Year's banquet when Marisil poured him a drink. She slipped sleeping drugs into it. Then, while he was knocked out, they snuck into his room and staged an assault. The day before his exile, Elsie told Marisil, perfect success. Now Uncle Well is a criminal who disrespected the first princess. No proof, no witnesses, and no one can expose the truth. Plus, he thinks he blacked out from drinking and won't even defend himself. Finally, they'll kick him out of this kingdom. Hearing this, Marisil hesitates, saying maybe they went a little overboard. He was a sweet uncle. Elsie replied that she was too soft. There's no way she was marrying him. Marrying that plain, older guy. She remembers the day their father introduced Well to them. Heroes were supposed to be sparkly, and Well was way older than them. Their father had asked if one of them would marry Well to tie the hero to the kingdom and ensure peace. Both of them argued over who would marry him, but that same day, right before their eyes, a real prince appeared, the Holy Lance hero, Belmoret. Both sisters fell in love at first sight. Elsie declared that the obstacle was gone. Now it was a competition to marry Belmoret and that she wouldn't lose. Elsie, in her spirit form, heard everything. She said she was done with all that. Let them do what they want, as she's going to Well's side. She then tells Well that's what really happened. Well thinks in the end Elsie left the holy sword and possessed his father's keepsake dagger. She must have investigated everything in her spirit form. In other words, he's the victim of a royal scandal. He says he didn't think those two hated him that much. He spoiled them too much. They were younger and much more talented than him. He then sighs, saying, well, he's kind of pathetic. Elsie calls him out, saying, enough moping, stop blaming himself. She continues telling him the princesses scheming, the snakes who used the scandal to bring him down, the useless king and queen who couldn't stop it, and the citizens who turned on him without a second thought, they're the problem. He was just betrayed. Well asks if it's really okay to think like that. Elsie then tells him not to protect the wrong people. The Oni folk welcomed him as they need him. Well stays silent when Elsie says angrily that's why she stayed quiet. It was too stupid. He would just stress about it, and she hates seeing him like that. She continues, but he has got the heart of a true hero. That overly kind nature of his, and besides, he has got her. He asks if she's trying to cheer him up. Later, Well is training, thinking he can't freeload forever, but still. As he's practicing, Eliza arrives. Well greets her when she calls his name and then thanks him. He gets surprised when she says she heard he's been thinking about ways to help the Oni folk. Well tells her he just had an idea. She tells him. She then offers her help if he ever needs it. Then she asks, by the way, what does he think of Natalia? He gets stunned, saying he doesn't even, but when Eliza interrupts him. She tells him Natalia lost both her parents to a magic beast. Her husband and her son was killed 5 years ago, yet she never stopped smiling or supporting others. But ever since he arrived, both Natalia and Delilah have started smiling like that again. Well stays silent when Eliza tells him she believes Natalia and Delilah cares for him, but his feelings aren't settled yet. Well thinks she saw right through him and apologizes. Eliza tells him not to overthink it. She's not asking him to shoulder everything. She just wants him to promise her one thing, don't die, because she never wants to see those two cry like that again. Well is taken aback. Later, at Grain's shop, Well arrives. Grain welcomes him and asks if he's there for his usual sword sharpening. Well agrees and also pulls out a bag full of magic stones. Grain gets surprised by the quantity, asking what it is there are so many. Well tells him he hunted every beast around the village and harvested the stones. Elsie says her detection support really helped. Grain says he couldn't have done that alone and asks what Well is planning. Well asks, magic stones are worth gold, right? Grain agrees when Well says if this isn't enough, he'll keep hunting and harvesting so forge him a stronger sword, stronger, tougher, and sharper. Grain sighs and says honestly he's risking his life again. He then tells Well there's something he wants to ask him. Well replies, what is it? Grain tells him he always wanted to forge a legendary weapon, but there's one sword he's never been able to make for 2 reasons. 1, the materials, and 2, the wielder. It requires an absurd number of magic stones and someone with the skill to wield it. He wants to forge the ultimate sword, asking if he'll make his dream come true. Well replies, of course. The powerful sword Grain proposed was a blade forged entirely from magic stones. To protect Natalia and the others, a new holy sword will be born.